Have you ever wondered who the most badass woman in cinema history is? If you said Rita Vataski, Black Widow, Sarah Connor, or even Rexy, you'd be wrong. Because I've got an ace up my sleeve, and it's Lieutenant First Class Ellen Ripley from 1986's Aliens. More specifically, Ripley fighting the alien queen in the iconic P5000 power loader. So let's get into it. With this being a mech, I need consistent clay thickness throughout, and for this thicker section, I'll call upon Old Faithful stir sticks and roll out an even thickness for the legs. For the panels, I traced over an online reference image and essentially played join the dots by transferring the template onto our pre-rolled clay, and then with my favourite blade, Wesley, I freeset template from its homogeneous prism. This leaves me with a very nice toilet profile that I can then use as a template for the second leg. You can see in this trace reference I have a black, a blue and a red layer. I've clearly used advanced color coding techniques here to separate out the different panels required. You can try and get your head around it, but don't hurt yourself. This is some big brain stuff. For the outer panels, I've used a set thickness of 3 on my pasta maker, which is pretty thin, and you can see here what the intention is when I lay the panels atop the girthy leg core. And now, I just need to bake these to make templates and proceed to make 4 more of each panel, as each mech has 2 legs and each leg has an inner and an outer panel. Get it?
Mostly.
I can give the panels subtractive details by means of various circle cutters and an X-Acto blade to extract what I need to. A quick shake will cause my panels to reproduce 4-fold, and then we can give our leg base a substantial sanding so that it may be as flat as possible to receive our panels. Now, something I learned a long time ago when it comes to making robots is this: bake the base, but apply the panels to the base uncured.
When does MasterChef come in?
We say this every year, don't we? I'm not sure.
If you bake the panel first, they will inevitably warp slightly and you won't get a clean contact with the base object. In this scenario, I use clay adhesive to fix all 5 pieces together, and what you can't see is that when I put them in the oven to bake, they are actually pressed between 2 small cheesecake dishes for maximum highway hedgehog flatness. The panel that we're working on now will be the upper arm, which will be significantly more lightweight than the legs, just 3 panels thick, of equal thickness. And this is the core panel, and we're going to need 3 more of these, which I'll make off camera before moving on to the panel which will sit either side of this one. Now, the reason I'm making Ripley specifically is for International Women's Day 2026. It's always good to take stock and appreciate the women that lift us up in our day-to-day lives. Oh, and the ones that slay robots and aliens for our entertainment. So, happy International Women's Day 2026, ladies. This one's for you. Here you can see a sample of several panels I've pre-baked that I will use as templates for consistency, as using uncured clay as a template will inevitably result in size variations which we do not want. Here are all my arm pieces, and the observant amongst you will notice that I have 4 core panels, which is 2 more than I needed, and a brain fart I was not expecting. My rudimentary counting skills aside, I adhere these pieces together and move on to the feet and forearms, which I will speed run to public domain, royalty-free classical music. Onto the torso of the body? I'm going to be calling upon my old friend Cardboard Core that will help reduce the weight and the cost of this project, and much to my surprise, this project was relatively low cost on clay, but extremely high cost on time. So don't be surprised if you see me devote an entire video to making Bob-omb in the coming weeks. But, as there is nothing new happening here for the next wee while, let me explain to you why Aliens is almost the greatest sequel of all time, and why, much like Game of Thrones Season 8, we never got an Alien 3 movie. The original Alien was a masterclass of suspense, and the seminal work of director Ridley Scott that would set the benchmark for all space horror that would come after it for the next 40 years. It was a slow burn, character-driven story about space truckers, chain of command, and oh yeah, a chest-bursting alien that grows at an exponential rate and slowly picks off the crew of the Nostromo one by one till Ellen Ripley is the last woman standing and triumphs over the now iconic xenomorph. Fast forward to Aliens, 57 years later, and our heroine Ripley is picked up from hypersleep to find she's being gaslit by the company that she almost died for. She's essentially being called a liar regarding the death of her entire crew, and oh yeah, for good measure, her daughter's dead too. After a meeting with the board and providing them with information regarding the site location of the xenomorph eggs, Ripley discovers the planet is now populated by terraformers with up to 70 families. With Ripley's information, the company sends a small family of terraformers to investigate the site, and wouldn't you know it, Dad comes back from the trip with a pet facehugger. Who could have seen that coming? Back on the ship, the shady company man convinces Ripley, against her better judgment, to go back to planet LV-426 with a ragtag group of colonial space marines, not those ones, these ones, to wipe out the alien species. That said, I would pay to watch the former. I'll watch anything with Henry Cavill, and I'm straight.
Mostly.
And what a group they are. Apone is the team leader on the ground, and you can immediately see the respect that he demands from his Marines. Vazquez was Michelle Rodriguez before Michelle Rodriguez. Bill Paxton is a standout as always. He's the loud but lovable Private Hudson, and of course, the 1980s legend that is Michael Biehn, the chef's kiss, the badass Corporal Hicks, the soldier with a heart. Just cinema. So the Marines are dropped onto the site to locate the locals, only to find them all dead, or, mostly dead or dying, but for one little girl called Rebecca, or Newt as she's known, who will of course live out her days happily ever after with her surrogate parents of Ripley and Hicks, which we know because Alien 3 definitely never happened. As the Marines sweep the base, they are descended upon by a swarm of xenomorphs with dark intentions to bring the live Marines to their nest and use them as incubators to grow their numbers. To what end? Don't know. The race must continue. With the captures and subsequent death of a large percentage of the team, the remaining Marines are stranded on the desolate planet after their retrieval ship is taken out by a pesky stowaway.
Well, where the
Retreating to the relative safety of the operations room where there are 2 captured facehuggers, the remaining team set up defenses and begin to plan their escape. It is decided that the ship's android Bishop will leave the rest of the team on a mission to retrieve another escape ship, and Ripley wants all of the live facehuggers in the lab destroyed. But our dear company man, Mr. Burke, thinks differently. You see, Mr. Burke has his own agenda. Retrieve alien lifeform, crew expendable. And this was 1986. This was the OG crew expendable, before it was a trope. Burke releases the 2 remaining facehuggers who try to give Newt and Ripley a little kissy kiss, but Hicks and Hudson save the day, which is short-lived as the remainder of the squad are ambushed via very sneaky Xenos hiding in the ceiling. This all leads to the climax of Newt being kidnapped by an alien that was having some me time in the bath, and Ripley going on a one-woman rescue mission to retrieve the shouty child. Seriously, Newt is mostly screaming in this movie.
Mostly.
So Ripley's given the option of a pulse rifle or a flamethrower to go on this mission, and when choosing between A or B, she simply says, yes. She straps those puppies together like a murderous surf and turf. Ripley manages to locate, retrieve, and abscond from the planet with Newt along with Bishop and Hicks, but next comes probably my introduction to the jump scare, known in the biz as the nobody no crime trope, where the alien queen rips Bishop in 2 the same way I do a Mark Wahlberg performance.
What? No!
Ripley manages to flee from the queen only to return to fight in what's one of cinema's greatest ever reveals.
Get away from her, you bitch!
No! The 2 proceed to fight to the death, and shock horror, the queen obviously beats the human in the completely impractical forklift suit, eats the child as a little snacky snack, then eats Hicks as he sleeps, gets to Earth, rules the planet, and we all get the Alien Earth TV show we deserved. The end. Jokes. Ripley wins, everybody's happy. Hicks and Newt definitely aren't killed off between movies so that Ripley can get with Tywin Lannister. In summary, Aliens is in my top 3 greatest movie sequels of all time, along with T2 Judgment Day and The Two Towers, all 3 of which I actually think are the best movies in their respective series. And as for Ripley, Over the course of Alien and Aliens, she grows from being a third in command as a warrant officer on a cargo ship to being a lieutenant first class of a search and destroy rescue mission. Her character growth and her actions are born from necessity. She goes to LV-426 because no one else has seen an alien. She drives into the alien nest because Gorman chokes. She searches for Newt because the only other option is to leave her to die. She fights the Queen because if she doesn't, they all die. James Cameron also goes heavy on the action on this one. The sets and the creature designs are articulated iconically by Stan Winston Studios in a way that modern CGI just cannot touch. An atmospheric cold blue color grade is set over the scenes, and though we're now on a whole space station, all the interactions with the xenomorphs feel very claustrophobic, and you know from early on that nobody is safe. Aliens is peak 80s cinema. It's raw, it's gritty, violent, and visceral, yet it has amazing character growth and still manages to sympathetically tell the story of a grieving mother, a grieving child, and the bond they form while running for their lives from aliens that want to explode them from the inside. Ripley goes in S tier for greatest heroine, and Aliens for greatest sci-fi sequel of all time. Speaking of time, it's rivet time. For the rivets, I'll be trying something new today. I usually impress in my rivets with a 0.7 mechanical pencil, but I can't find it. So as an alternative, I ate 1 kilo of yogurt and spent 20 buckaroonies on a 1.5mm hole punch to make little rivets that I can glue strategically to places via stop frame. The alternative being this. And that's the mech mostly sculpted.
Mostly.
Okay, I'll stop now. Or will I? But we are on to Ripley. Now, the logistics of actually sculpting an accurate Ripley relative to the power loader made my brain itch, so I opted to spend 30 of my soft-earned New Zealand dollars on this Star Wars figurine. Now I figure as this character is from the much-maligned Disney Ahsoka TV show, the Star Wars fandom won't mind me defiling this toy for one such as Ripley. Firstly, I have to convert the skirt into pants, or trousers, and then I will call upon my old friend Milliput. Milliput is a two-part epoxy putty that when mixed together causes a reaction which will allow the putty to cure over a few hours. I will, as always, mix about 10 times more than I need, as all I'm wanting to achieve here is to add little t-shirt sleeves and collars to the Reeboks. And it's good to know that Reebok are so confident in their product, they have product placement for the year 2179. I can add some shirt wrinkles to the front because why not? And then we can prime our model with an all-American mild mustard. Now it's important to note that I am not losing my mind here. I primed this model in the dark before bed, so I'm giving the base a once over with a yellow contrast paint. When I'm happy the yellow is sufficiently yellow, I lay down a silver on the pistons and anywhere else as per the references. And onto the cockpit, the black padding is up next, and once dry I'll add an edge highlight that I'll blend in with progressively darker greys. I'm not going to do this for all the pads as they won't be visible once our pilot's in place. And while we got the black out, I figured that we can add the hazard strips. I honestly don't know if these are hazard strips or were just a design choice that looked cool. And we all know how I feel about the rule of cool here. To add the strips, I cut up painter's tape to the desired size and start applying to the relevant locations. I'll do this for... quite some time. Quite some time. I'll start dabbing on the paint with a rough sponge, and this wasn't applying as well as I had hoped, so I ended up stippling it on with an old dry brush. I can give the paint a few minutes to dry before removing the tape, and removing said tape is oddly satisfying with the stippling technique as it makes the paint job look like it's taken a few licks over the years, hence free weathering. I can admire the silhouette before we can move on to the real weathering. With this metal being on the lighter end of the color spectrum, in order to start the weathering, I dab on black dots randomly while trying to focus the heavier patches on the corners and the edges, as these are more likely to take the bumps. With the black in place, I then come back with some silver on my newly acquired Da Vinci brush for additional scratches and edge highlights. And if you have a mo, let me know in the comments section which is the best exoskeleton ever put to film in your opinion. Is it Edge of Tomorrow? Is it the Hulkbuster? Is it District 9? Is it something I've never heard of? Let me know. Love to hear from you. I bought these decals and I managed to get a few on, but they were so incredibly finicky that I abandoned the mission after getting 4 on the arm that were near invisible. So I just moved on to other things, starting by masking off the model again and painting in all the little red bits that are scattered all over the place. I've got this Vallejo weathering which I love more than every fibre in my bicep, and I'll be using a brush and a sponge to dirty up this loader. Now when applying rust and grime, start by looking at the obvious locations where water would linger. See, here I'm focusing on the inner panel where the outer panel sits on top. If there were any excess water or typical daily atmospheric condensation, then here is a likely place for rust to form over time. Next up, the panel on the lower leg. Same technique again. I brush into the connection point, then drag out the rust to make the panel appear weathered. I also use a sponge directly onto the silver areas to age them up fairly nicely. It's a pretty free-flowing treatment. Like most of the actions in my life, I don't really think ahead, and that's worked out okay. And you can see here the difference in the weathered side and the simply chipped side. And fun fact about the power loader, there was actually a stuntman inside the suit that literally walked around Sigourney Weaver, or walked Sigourney Weaver around. Depends on what way you look at it. Pretty chuffed with the mech, we can move on to Ripley. First I make her white shirt a very dirty brown and paint the arms in a flesh tone. I then have to paint over the ill-advised forehead tattoo and darken the hair. I can add some lighter grey highlights to the hair so that it's not so flat, and then dry brush the raised edges of the shirt. The pants initially receive a very blue, and with them drying I'll edge highlight the shirt and paint over the pink eyeshadow, which I don't think Ripley had. Once dry, I'll use some of the remaining rusty weathering paint that I had on my palette to make Ellen look a little extra filthy. The Reeboks get a red trim and then we can make the harness. To make the harness, I fold a piece of painter's tape over on itself, trimming to a suitable thickness and painting it blue, making sure my camera was off whilst I did this. For the buckle, I used this little greebly that I had lying around. Is it too large to be a buckle? Well, yes it is. But I don't want to make a tiny one, heat my oven, bake a 2mm piece of clay for 5 minutes, wait for that to cool down, and then paint it. So we're getting a mega buckle. I can glue the harness straps directly onto Ripley's back and the buckle to the front, which leads us to the base. And I didn't want the base design to run square with the edges, and to that end I'll be adding the grille where Newt hid from the Queen at about a 45-degree angle to the edges. To make the grille, I use a 1mm square profile basswood, which is more durable than balsa in the long run. I started with the top runner, which I glued down to the MDF board, and then I run the rest of the grills perpendicular using a cutoff that you can see coloured red here as a spacer so that they're all spaced consistently. The edges get trimmed and sanded back, and I'll add the top layer of clay to act as a concrete floor. I'll base down the edges and do a quick fit check before basting the MDF with clay adhesive, and I bake this in the oven for no more than 5 minutes, as MDF does have glue and resin binders in it, and we don't want to feel that in the air tonight now, do we? I drill in 3 footholes and sand the top coat for a little bit of texture, and then prime the model in a thick and cheap black acrylic. Once dry, I can loosely dry brush the grille silver and sponge on a medium grade to cover all the concrete. I follow this up with a light grade dappling, then a charcoal. To bring this all together, I'll drown the base in a very thin black wash, which is just water and a cheap black acrylic. After a minute or so, I'll use a paper towel to remove the majority of the paint, followed by an overall dabbing with a sponge to remove most of the brush strokes. And I don't know about you, but I think that leaves us a pretty convincing concrete floor. Once dry, I'll touch up the silver on the grille, only to grime it up with more rust almost immediately. And to give the base a little more visual interest, I'm going to be adding a warning strip between the grille and the concrete. I start with a white base, then add additional tape for the shape of the red markings that'll go on top. Again, this is looking a bit too pristine for my liking, which means that we need our sponge for some paint chipping, followed by a black wash to muddy up the white. Super stoked with the base, we can begin assembly. Firstly, I'll glue the loader into place, followed by Ripley into the loader, then the main cockpit frame so she can't escape. I can then add the horizontal elements to the structure, and as these are made out of aluminium, I can simply scrape off the top layer of paint to reveal the metal below. Free weathering. And in a shocking twist that I'm sure nobody saw coming, I'll add some rust to the frame. And as far as a paint job is concerned, I believe that is us done, and we can add some wires. Now these are $2 headphones that I got from the dollar store, which are great for small wiring details. I cut 6 wires to size and then glue them into place from the back to the arms. And for one final detail, I've made a tiny little vehicle in operation light. I coat this with UV resin for a little shine and then glue it into place. And with that, look frosty, Marines. Look frosty.
Game over, man. It's game over.
Mostly.
You know, I had a lot of fun with this one, and I think I may just have a new favourite. If I saw this in a display at a comic book store, I think I might want to buy it. And with real monies too. Let me know in the comments section below what you think, and go check out my previous bot on screen right now. I think you might like it. And until next time, go make a mess.